So I started in 2022 with the company, and I was first asked by their CEO to potentially work with one of their executives and help her with executive leadership levels and leading teams. And they were going through some pretty significant organizational change. About a year before I started working with them, XL Parts and TPH came together under one umbrella, and they operate as two separate brands, but internally their operations came together. They wanted to be one company. So I was first tasked to help with them with cultural integration, senior leadership alignment, and the way my programs work, whether I'm working with the entire company or just one person, I quickly introduced Cloverleaf, just a part of my engagement to build trust with my client. And often I have a workshop of some sort with their team, so I can understand when I'm coaching somebody, I understand the people that they're working with. So one of my first engagements with XL Parts TPH was with their senior leadership team. We did a team's workshop. I introduced Cloverleaf then, and that was the first introduction of Cloverleaf to the company. And it's funny, on a short stories, right after that, I had the CEO asked me to work with 3 of his direct reports. 2 of them were super excited to work with me and thought it was a great investment, and they saw immediately they were excited. And the third one, he quickly admitted to me that he had a lot of skepticism in being assigned a coach, as if that was a negative thing and something was wrong with him, so he needed support. But he told me, he's like, I have to be honest with you. The only reason why I'm excited to work with you is because if you see me as Cloverleaf says who I am, then I know we're going to work well together, and we don't have to go through any sort of like the woo-woo dancing around that you would have to do with a coach, and we can kind of cut to the chase and talk about how I could lead my team and work together. So I just thought that was a fun story initially with one of the executives. And then the partnership itself with Cloverleaf and XL Parts TPH really started to expand when we went further with their leadership development programs, and that's where I met Linda.
As you said, you introduced it to the executive team, and then I was tasked to create a leadership development program. So we identified 30 high potential people in the company with this both brand expanding company that Marcy mentioned. And we wanted to include Cloverleaf for each and every one of those 30 leaders. So they got introduced to it. Marcy actually helped lead part of the workshop, and then I kind of kept it going, so to speak, kept it alive during their entire, the leadership development program was over several months, and they could expand it with their teams. So that's where the next level engagement happened. And we ran that program in the fall, and then we ran a separate program with another 30 high potentials in the spring. So now we had 60 people basically on the Cloverleaf platform who were engaged and excited people in our company.
Well, I think after Linda had this success story with her program that she was doing, and I was helping support her on it. And it wasn't too much after that, the 2 of us started really brainstorming, like, how can we get this deeper in the organization? Mm-hmm. So it's a significantly large company, and you have a lot of these satellite offices and stores that they work in. So the company is, it's a diverse organization across the country. And we're like, how can we just get this deeper? And so we decided to meet with Cloverleaf and say, how could they have a direct account instead of using the Revel coach account? Because we felt like this could be, a good opportunity to kind of impact more lives.
Agree. And we really went into it with letting as many people as they wanted to expand into it. So it was one of their unlimited, so to speak, agreements. So we had a Cloverleaf person come here and explain it to us, and thankfully, the CEO had seen the benefit because of Marcy, so he agreed to engage directly with Cloverleaf. And then we kind of had to come up with, well, how do we really get this to expand in a much larger way? And we appreciate Marcy was able to do a monthly call, which was optional. And we had so many people opt in because they saw the benefit not only in Cloverleaf, but in hearing, how to stay above center, how to have a good attitude, the positive impact. It was just a really positive implementation.
And the way Linda and I liked working together is there's nothing better than a pilot. So you always have some people that are early adopters and all in on a tool like this. And so Linda's got that growth mindset. I have growth mindset. So for us, we have natural enthusiasm for it. But what we liked about the initial engagement with Cloverleaf when you're going direct with a company is you can allow it to grow organically. And that just allows you to say, like, is it just the people in learning development that love this tool, or is it throughout the organization? And we decided to do these monthly optional calls. And, the first few calls, we had 120 people show up, and it's all optional. And every time they showed up, we do a lesson on mindset, leadership, teamwork, and things like that. And then we'd also do one part on the technology. And I was floored on the engagement. They all show their videos. Some are parked in parking lots, like with their seatbelts on and things like that. But so many questions and so much vulnerability that they were willing to, open up and comment and ask questions and things like that. XL Parts TPH was one of my initial clients that went direct with them. And from that experience was my experience to recognize how powerful this tool is, because you can have people with no education around any of these assessment tools and having significant examples of how it's impacting their everyday, because it's just that accessible.
It's a huge value. One of the things I love about it is that it is a push. Everybody receives that coaching tip automatically every day without any of us doing any work. Because we are an expanding company, which means people have more work than they can do kind of thing. As we expand and grow, there's a lot of pressure. And so by getting these coaching tips, it's a quick read and it really sets them in the right mindset for the day. And that's been invaluable. And then those that want to take it further have really been able to do so. And those 30 initial people really gravitated toward it and have used it in numerous ways. And the second level, if I can jump ahead, we've got a new course that we just implemented called Respected Leaders Course, which is a virtual course. The other had a component of in-person, so they got to meet Marcy. But this time, it's all virtual. And it was still really successful because the people teaching are now members of our organization that have familiarity with Cloverleaf, and they all integrated it into each of the leadership topics, so that they're teaching each other how to use Cloverleaf with their own examples, and that's very powerful.
I think the number one challenge that I see with this organization, when you go through hyper growth, through merging companies or acquiring companies, and just the team is running as fast as possible. And so the word overwhelm, or they're almost too busy to change habits, was one of the biggest challenges. So if I have the strategy executive level, the core values, our mission, our leadership norms, to roll those out, it can hit a roadblock if they're like, yeah, that's great for you, but I got to get some stuff done. So that was kind of the biggest challenge. So it kind of could go down to the first line of leaders, like the vice president's level, maybe the executive director level. But below that, the field managers, that's where there was a real gap. So what I did like about how Linda and I would partner together is we'd have a strategy. So we would reflect the words of the COO or CHRO. We would reflect their words of the strategy, but we would use Cloverleaf to show them how they could get on board. From the field level, they recognized that they were just going around their everyday in the way of I'm right, without thinking that my collective team, other people that are involved that are as a part of the whole, like to get parts in the hands of customers, it takes pricing, it takes marketing, it takes operations, sales. There's so many people involved. So the obstacle we had was trying to create this one team mentality, but getting the people to change how they interacted with the other departments was the challenge. And Cloverleaf really helped them say, like, oh, this is where I'm actually slowing things down, or how I could change. But they did it in a way that wasn't time consuming. So Linda, I wanted to see if you wanted to share a story that somebody shared on the call that we thought was so insightful to that.
We, as Marcy mentioned, she'd do a monthly call and we'd invite optionally everybody. And there was a woman that got on who I actually didn't know. I've never met her, didn't know her, but she's somebody in the field. And she was explaining how she had this person that she worked with in her same location that really irritated her and was really somebody that was not helping make things happen, kind of thing. And she really felt this friction. And when she looked at Cloverleaf and understood this person, it was a huge light bulb and everything. Oh, this is why they're not attacking me with questions. They're just a C. They're very curious, and it got rid of all the combative. It got rid of all the judgment, and it became a curiosity. And she started to understand much more on the responsibility she has to making that relationship work, and how this other person thinks differently. And it just came spontaneously. It was just really heartwarming. And it showed the value of working together. We become more of a team. As Marcy mentioned, we were actually a lot of smaller, we've had acquisitions. So everybody's kind of in a smaller mindset. And now we're one big company. So this makes it feel more personal, that you can have a good relationship with people that you haven't met or that are even standing right next to you because of Cloverleaf.
Another thing we love from this approach of working together is we would impromptu create a team's dashboard. So you'd see who joined the optional call, and we'd impromptu, sometimes we ask for volunteers, and sometimes Linda would add some people. We'd have a diverse group, and then we would just do a live coaching session as if that group was a part of a team. And I, who really did not know some of the people that were on this call, would say what I'm noticing in the differences of personalities. And I'd say, can anybody jump in? Am I, kind of how Cloverleaf works with thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm like, am I hitting on anything that resonates with you? And the laughter of people jumping on, be like, this is so true. And they would just jump in, and it didn't feel very vulnerable, but it was like, it just felt easy for them to say, yeah, that's how I do it. They'd have a couple interactions. But when the call was over from the recording, the banter of everybody afterwards showing how much respect they had for some of these senior leaders that were on, that were just sharing, like, yeah, this is what really drives me crazy when other people do this, but I'll try to keep it in check. You guys can hold me accountable. But they were so impressed by their senior leaders, by being that open to what works for them and what doesn't work for them. And it just helped, I think, from the employee experience with it. It helped them say, like, yeah, this is a great tool to use. And they started using it with their peers and their small teams and stuff like that.
Well, as I mentioned, I love the fact that as everybody comes into their day, they can get it through Teams. They can get their coaching tip through Teams. We use Microsoft products, or they can get an Outlook email, or both. And the fact that they can share them now within the app, that's really valuable. Just that initial level. But those that want to take it next level, the insight feature, I feel is really valuable. You can type a question in there when you're having a moment, I feel overwhelmed, what should I do, kind of thing. And Cloverleaf helps you. Or I'm going to meet with so-and-so, and how can I have a better meeting with them? That has helped me in particular. I can think of a time that I was meeting with someone, and I put in Cloverleaf, how should I prepare for this meeting? And it gave me some tips that really did help the meeting. I changed how I was going to present, and it made a difference. So I think those are the two main features, just having it arrive and then actually seeking out using Insight Search or the calendar integration feature.
I think the simplest way is everybody's version of what happened, or is what is happening, or where their obstacles are, is true to them. And so as a coach, if I'm just taking the words face value, it has to be true to me. And so what I find with complementing Cloverleaf, knowing like more the dynamics of the people around them, I find it's so much easier to say, how do we want to adjust our styles to show up differently? Or how do we want to invite them? If somebody feels better having an agenda and being more prepared, how is my client giving them the time and space to make sure that they can show up their best self and confident? But if somebody is actually all about trust, I'm like, are you walking down the hall and asking how they're doing? Like, ask them about their family. So for me, I find it's so much easier as a coach when I'm giving relevant advice to the people around them and not just listening to the words that the client shares for their scenario as the only truth. So that's kind of, for me, it makes me like as if I'm in the room knowing all the personalities, even though I'm really hired to help one person or one team. The story that Cloverleaf always shares, people are complicated. And if you have more curiosity than judgment over the people, you tend to work better together, which means you people that work better together get better results. So I just think Cloverleaf makes it not a confrontational situation to have differences, but more of a thirst for curiosity of how they work. And then it's not a difficult thing to confront when the words are said about the person in such a clean way. And you're like, this is why we need to do this, a different way.
The curiosity versus confrontation component. Is there anything that you would want to speak to that dynamic and how people approach each other? Have you noticed any shifts or changes?
Yes, I have. There was a lot of mistrust or feeling like it's sort of an us and them because we're two different brands, or we're us and them if we're sales and operations. We have different agendas. There's some friction. And as Cloverleaf and Marcy in particular has helped us to see that people are people and we need to work together. The course, like I mentioned, is Respected Leaders course. So respect is part of our values, part of our mission. We actually want to be the most respected supplier. And by having Cloverleaf, it helps us to live that by coming at respect, not judgment, and understanding that we each have a different way that our brain thinks, that we value the diversity. That's the other thing I think is really important. We're not trying to cookie cutter everybody into being the same. A D tends to be at the top doing things maybe. I'm not a D, but I still have value and I still can have a career here. So that's what I want to make sure everyone in our organization knows, that they can have a long career no matter what their style is or how they get things done, that we respect the differences. I just feel it's invaluable. It's the intangible. The growth happens because our company's growing, for other reasons, but the intangible is to make it work and make people be able to work with others more easily. And that's something that's very hard to do. And I feel like Cloverleaf does it really well. And it's like silent partner. It's so powerful. It's like this genie in a bottle over here that's giving you the intel that you wouldn't know. People are complicated. I would say go for it is what I would say, and that it's needed. And in the world like today, you want people to be more inclusive and more together on things and not focused on the differences, but focused on how they can support each other.
One of the reasons why I love our partnership, Linda, is I feel like when we're coming to the table for any one of our calls, we always pick a hot topic that's going on in the last, say, 2 weeks or so. Because we know what's happening at the strategy level or where the pains are, we never go into Cloverleaf just as a culture tool or just as a get to know yourself tool. So while that has thousands of benefits, which I think we all know, we go into it as here's the results you're trying to achieve, and we teach that first, and then we show, and this is how you can search Cloverleaf, or this is how you can create one team as a big initiative, having multiple departments work together. So we'll create a dashboard. We'll teach them how to use a dashboard when they have to interact for the first time with people they've never met of other departments. So we kind of do strategy, short and long-term results first, and here's how Cloverleaf can help you. So that's how we do it.
I was just going to add that practical examples, because people don't have time to just think theory. This has to be very practical. So one of the practical applications is I'm also involved with our annual performance reviews. And so if you're a manager and you're writing a performance review, Cloverleaf can really be a tool to help you. And it's particularly when you're having then the conversation. So not only in writing, but then how do you communicate with that person? And I had several people tell me how Cloverleaf really helped those conversations go better. For an example, a manager told me that he used to beat around the bush. He didn't want to be direct with someone. He thought that would be too harsh. But it said that person wanted direct, and they were so appreciative of him just jumping in and being direct and not trying to sugarcoat and dance around everything. So that shows how you can be more effective if you have Cloverleaf behind you.